All right, we should be live. Welcome back to another weekly live stream. It's Trader XO here once again. It's the 14th of October 2024, and the time is 9 p.m. in the UK or 8 p.m. UTC. If you can just give me a quick confirmation in the chat that you can hear me okay and you can see my screen, we'll kick off today's session very shortly. All right, excellent. So as always, today's stream, it's sponsored by OK Exchange, who I am a product partner with. And a special thank you to the team at OK Exchange for sponsoring these weekly streams. As always, anything said in today's video is not financial advice. It is just my view of the market. And without further ado, let's kick off the stream. So I think what we'll do in today's stream is keep it relatively simple. I think the first thing that I'd like to focus on is context in terms of market, trade context, and looking at the overall environment. We'll take a look at Bitcoin on the high time frame. We'll drop down onto the lower time frame. We'll review Total 2, Total 3, Ethereum, and we'll probably go over a couple of altcoins as well in terms of setups. So first things first, the Bitcoin chart. If we just move on to the monthly, I'm just going to jump straight into this, okay? If you recall what I said in the previous stream, I think going back 10 days or 12 days, right? What do you observe or what do you notice with the wicks? Okay, that was one of the first key pointers that I highlighted on the monthly chart. Now, when you look at historical context on any chart for that matter, when you see a series of high time frame wicks at key demand zones, it's often probable that you'll get a reversal from that point. Same happened at the highs here, okay? So you can see how price often reverses from these inflection points. Now, again, when you look at what we've had over the last 3-4 months in July, August, and September, fairly significant wicks, okay? Buyers are stepping into the market, sellers unable to push price lower down. All right, so that's a very, very positive sign, but it needs confirmation. The second point is that in terms of the monthly open, okay, we've had price trade below the monthly open. It's now above that particular level. They're the two key pointers for me in terms of the chart. Not only that, but we are also above the September monthly open and the October monthly open. So for me, in terms of high time frame contextual levels of support, I do want to see this 63.5k level hold as support now, moving forward. Let's drop down onto the weekly. Now, in terms of the weekly, looking at the chart, again, taking the previous candle body high of 2021, you can see that price is very close enough to find an acceptance above that level, okay? That's point number 2 in terms of the weekly chart. What I also want to mention, and again, I'm just looking at the contextual aspects first, just what stands out to me the most, is when you look at the yearly chart. So again, yearly lows, and we've also got the yearly highs, okay? What's the one thing that I've said time and time again on stream and on the timeline is that there's no reason or concern for me in terms of Bitcoin to the downside for as long as price respects the yearly mid-level. Now, when you drop down to the daily time frame chart, this was the key demand zone that I focus on, that I've highlighted in the past, that every time price is traded in or around this level, it's been very, very short-lived. Buyers have been very quick to step into the market. So again, I'm not going to elaborate on the point of, you know, calling for 80k or 40k. I've said it time and time again. If people want to do that, let them do that. All that I'm concerned about is what is the chart telling me right now and where I want to do business, okay? For as long as we're above the yearly mid-level, I don't have any concerns that we're likely to trade significantly lower down. If that happens, we'll revisit that scenario as and when that develops. But for now, I think from a contextual perspective, from a contextual bias perspective, I've highlighted in the previous stream how just because of the fact that we are making lower lows and lower highs, okay, isn't necessarily bearish, because you have to understand the overall structural composite of price. This is not a trending environment. Generally, when you have a break of market structure followed by a trend, that's when you see acceleration to the downside. We touched upon this on the previous stream, okay? You get the break in market structure, you get a lower high, lower low. Price is not going to waste any time in accelerating to the downside or to the upside. In this instance, as highlighted on the previous stream, it's just for me still within a range-bound environment between that 53, 54 to 70k level. And I also made a point of reference, right, that how many, again, I'm not calling anybody out, but how many individuals have stated that this is bearish market structure. We also covered the fact that, well, if this is assumed or perceived to be bearish market structure, which I disagree with, I've held my views that I'm still looking for higher prices. Okay, in terms of market structure, when we had a top in Bitcoin in 2021, again, when price finally established a range-bound environment, you had a low, a higher high, a higher low, equal highs, another high low, another high high. Is this deemed to be bullish all of a sudden? Yet price breaks down, the trend continuation is lower. So again, looking at this from a contextual perspective, right? For all the bear posting and doom posting out there, I just don't see it personally at this moment in time. And again, when you look at this, this is more of a corrective consolidation, redistributive structure, as opposed to, again, we are getting lower lows and lower highs. But again, I deem this to be a signs of reaccumulation until proven otherwise. All right. So just think about the contextual structure. You'll see many tweets about Bitcoin still printing lower highs and lower lows and so forth. But I think in the grand scheme of things, you've just got to treat this as a consolidation structure until price resolves one side or the other outside of the range. Then we can for certain know that we've got a possible direction of continuation, lower or higher. But for now, you've got to trade the range for what it's worth. Is that clear? Okay, now what we're going to do next is move on to the moving averages in terms of context. So another thing that's very encouraging to see is what did we talk about in terms of the 12 and the 25 weekly EMAs? The bands are still bullish. They have managed to reclaim back above the 12 and the 25s. That's essentially what I spoke about in the previous stream, that as long as price trades below the bands, but not too far away, and it remains compressed under the bands, there's every possibility that we could see price reclaim back above, retest into the bands, and then you've got to go with that continuation higher. We made a reference to SPX or ES, where in a previous example, we had on the weekly time frame, price lose the bands, didn't trade significantly away from the bands. It was very, very short-lived, a matter of 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. Reclaims back above, structure is respected, the context is still intact, the context is to the upside, and we saw that continuation higher in terms of price. So again, when you look at Bitcoin here, we had 1 to 3 weeks below the bands, trades back above it, and holds that level. This is why, again, in line with the monthly open, I think that this level of 62, 63 is the key level for me, where I do not want to see acceptance below that 63k level from this point onwards. Okay, otherwise I think that all that tells me, if we are to trade back below the bands, is that we will see further continuation in terms of range bound price action as opposed to continuation higher. All right, is that clear so far in terms of the high time frame context? So looking at the high time frame context, I think there's nothing for me to be concerned of. I'm still looking to be aggressive in the market when there are buying opportunities. We are at a level of resistance here. And I think any pullbacks now into 62 or the monthly open will present an opportunity to take some longs, okay? That's what I'm looking for. In terms of my spot positioning, I'm already in spot from 50, I think it was 57s or 56s from down here. So I'm just talking about from a trade perspective, an overall contextual perspective, I'm not seeing the bearish case at the moment. Now let's have a look at some oscillators on the higher time frame. When you look at the weekly, again, I've alluded to the fact that when the weekly oscillators have been trading at the lows here, and price is just in somewhat of a corrective channel or range, that's generally a sign of strength in the market for me. And I also alluded to the fact that when you see price or the RSI oscillating at the lows, it's generally not a good time to short the market or look for shorts when the oscillators are heavily oversold. You want to be instead looking at the context of price and looking for those buying opportunities where, in essence, we're looking for continuation higher. Okay, that's pretty much been the context. I still think we're going to get that move higher over the coming weeks. When you look at previous structures on Bitcoin in terms of corrections and consolidations and continuation, what do we have? Okay, classic example is price in a range, takes out the lows, continuation higher. We saw that again at the start of this year. Trades are in the range, you get the spring below, push up, continuation higher. And I think once again, we covered this in the stream, spring below into this key daily or weekly demand zone of 50k, closes back inside, retests that significant key level again, and now we're starting to get that push away higher. So you've really got to ask yourself, is if price can't break down, we've seen the wicks, we've looked at the moving averages or the EMAs, we've looked at the weekly stock RSI. Is this really a market that you want to be shorting or fading aggressively to the downside, as opposed to looking for very good buying opportunities when you see fear or and emotions on the timeline? Okay, that's pretty much been the context. That's everything that I've alluded to over the last several weeks throughout the streams. Let's see what's happening. Hope you're well. Any questions around that? And we'll drop down onto the lower time frames. But when you look at this, it looks fairly good to me. I do not have any concerns. My expectations are this certainly does go back to the highs. Right, in terms of the market, what we covered last week. Now, if you go back to the previous stream, if anybody did care to watch it or did watch the replays, we shared the trade setups, and there was one key level that I highlighted, and it was this as a key inflection point. The point was that for as long as price, okay, I don't mind a retest into this level, as it's often presented a very good buying opportunity. I went into depth about the trade setup on the previous stream. When you look at price, the inflection points off this level have been very good. Capping price to the downside. But again, this daily demand zone is essentially what I wanted. Price tags that level, takes out the previous lows. That was a trigger for me to essentially look for continuation in longs. We caught the long the previous week or whenever it was from 60k to 64s. It got back under the monthly open. That's when I head short on the timeline as well, looking for price to take out these lows, to get back into position reclaim above the level, and now we're looking for this to trade back into the highs, which we have. Okay, now the question is, if 66k is the resistance level, then what am I looking for in terms of pullbacks? Assuming that I'm not into position, then for me, it's a matter of, well, where is the monthly open? First of all, we know that the monthly open is resting at that level of around about 63.4, 63.5. Let's go into the daily time frame. Let's just map out the high time frame range. We've got our range highs. We've got our significant range lows. We are above the mid-level. And I think when you look at price, the number of attempts it's had to break below the yearly mid-level, 1, 2, 3 attempts, and it's failed from July, August, September. And the fact that we've left, okay, a bunch of lower highs, I think these are primed to get taken out. I really do. I think any pullbacks into that monthly open level, if should that happen, I'm not counting on it, but if it should set up any deviation below it, or whether it's just into that level, I'm looking for continuation longs, and I do believe at some point these highs will get rattled. Okay, that's essentially what I'm looking for. Invalidation is very, very clear for me. It's going to be at this key mid-level here. Okay, below 60k, and then I think there is cause for concern to the downside, okay, because we've had 1, 2, 3 attempts at the lows, okay. But in terms of local market structure, we have shifted context as far as I'm concerned when you look at price, such that there's our significant low. We've printed a high, higher low, higher high, another higher low. I'm looking for that continuation of bullish market structure within this larger range. It's still within a range, okay? And like I said, we probably won't get a clear definitive trend until we find price trading above 73, 74k. And until that happens, okay, I'm just looking to play those rotational trades on Bitcoin, skewed more to the long side as opposed to the short side, but maintaining my spot exposure. And should price trade the highs, okay, over the coming weeks, take out these highs, and should it get back inside, then that is a classic example or scenario as to where I would then start hedging my short. I'll start hedging my spot exposure with some shorts, okay? So that's the defensive scenario in the event that we do run the highs, get back inside. I'm going to lock in the gains that I've bought on spot by hedging with a short around this region here. Until price can prove to me that I want to continue higher, then I will remove the shorts and let price trade higher, 75, 80, 85k, whatever it is, right? So in terms of trade setups, I'm not sure what that is going to look like. I've just closed out my long from 68.k into 66, just below 66. So I'm just waiting to see how price develops here. But ultimately, I think the better opportunities are on altcoins. We've seen some significant moves on altcoins, and that's kind of where my focus has been for the last few weeks. But overall, just to summarize, I think things are looking very, very good on Bitcoin, or at least very, very promising, where my expectations for now is that as long as price is below that, above the 60k level, the 61k level, then I'm looking for a continuation higher. Right, let's move on to total 2. What's interesting here is, did anybody see my tweet from this morning? The reference that I made between total 2, total 3, and the SPX. So what's fascinating again is, let's just start off on the higher time frame context with the bands, okay? Again, the key point of today's stream is just more context and why I'm looking to take risk on. Looking at the weekly time frame here, the 12 and the 25s are Price is very close to the 12 and 25s, okay? Any pushes up now later this week, and we get acceptance above this level into the weekly close, there's a high possibility that we can see this flip back into a bullish signal using the 1225s, okay? In terms of the bands, again, the key thing to notice here is look at the trajectory. When you're in a bear market, the velocity or trajectories to the downside is fairly aggressive. When you are in a consolidation or a consolidation phase of consolidation, okay, you will see the bands pretty much dissipate to the side, okay, trending sideways as price is going through that corrective phase. So any flips above this level and holds, that's a reason for me to be furthermore aggressive into the coming weeks, heading into November and December, okay? So again, I really do like how the market is setting up across the board. Let's look at total 3. Same again. I do believe this is signal bull, okay? It's holding above that level. The bands are starting to cross up. So very, very encouraging to see in the market. We've had 6 months of consolidation. So I'm looking for that continuation higher. Ideally, I want to see the bands hold, the 12s and the 25. Don't mind any wicks below. I think that presents buying opportunities, but expectation is for this to trade higher. Now, when you look at the RSI as well, above the 50 level, okay? Very encouraging to see. It's the same, I believe, on total 2. It's just hovering, give or take, at that 50 level. And again, when you look at Bitcoin as well, above that 50 level. So that's also very, very encouraging for me. The fact that we're above the bands, price is starting to make higher highs and higher lows within this range band environment, and the RSI is above 50. Some more reasons, again, in terms of context, why I'm looking to be aggressive in Q4 until conditions tell me otherwise. Now I'm going to go back to total 2. Again, like I said in today's stream, we just want to focus on context. When you look at the charts, okay, and I'm going very, very slow this stream. When you look at the charts here, we've had 6 months of markets trending lower or rotationally going lower in terms of lower lows and lower highs. You've got our lows here. We've got a high. Okay. This is a higher low, another higher high, into a higher low. We're now starting to see that shift in context before we're likely to see acceleration if this is a bullish market. So that's one aspect that I want you to pay attention to, and such that my invalidation now is this consolidation region here. I really want to see this structure hold if there is a pullback. When or if there is a pullback on total 2, we'll probably see corresponding pullbacks across many altcoins. I think that, again, is an opportunity to position in for buying the dip. Okay, I'm not necessarily advocating for the fact that I think it's a time to short. I think the sensible play here is to be patient if there is a pullback, to look for those pullbacks or start scaling into positions, leaving plenty of ammo dry. If there is a pullback, you can add to your positions as well, okay? For those of you who might be underexposed and you're looking for some good setups, and there's some fantastic setups that still exist across the board. I can appreciate that meme coins have ran, right? But there are still ample opportunities in the AI sector into some fairly decent projects out there that have good, solid underlying fundamentals, which will matter in a bull market. Let's look at total 3. Again, it's the same kind of structure that I'm looking at. You see this rounding of a bottom. We've had lower highs, lower lows, another lower low, lower high, into another low, into a lower high, higher low, higher high, higher low. Okay, that shift in structure. Now, when you look at the SPX, and if we go to the 2-day or the 3-day chart, whichever one you want, entirely up to you, very similar in that sell-off. We had this zone here as a consolidation, right? Price trending up. Break of market structure. Lower high. Okay, we broke this, lower low, lower high. Trend down. There's our lows. Lower high, lower low. You're looking for that shift in structure on price. And what we then saw on ES, and it's not so much that I'm comparing total 2 and total 3 to the SPX, it's more about the actual structure and what you want to observe in terms of continuation going higher. So we can see that eventually we had our significant lows at this level here. The first significant higher low, into a higher high, into a higher low, consolidation, compression into resistance, expansion to the upside. That's kind of what my expectation is, or what I would be looking for over the coming weeks and months on total 2 and total 3. So for the time being, there are some altcoins that will rally significantly. Other altcoins will be still fairly somewhat rotational. Price will trade higher, pull back fairly steep, 20, 30, 40% corrections relative to where price is. Trade again higher into a higher high, back again into a higher low until you see acceleration into a significant trend going higher. That's kind of what I'm looking for now in terms of the charts on total 2 and total 3. So you can see the context, what I'm looking for. So again, in terms of expectations, right? If we are in a truly bullish environment, then I'm looking for that shift higher. And potentially at some point, the question is, will we get a pullback into this level? There's a new high, into another high low, into some form of compression, then breakout at some point in Q4. That's what I'm looking for. Where am I wrong on this idea? I've already stated that clear. That should price still just be contained within a range, then we just have to accept the market for what it's worth, okay? But equally, again, I'm not looking at this market and thinking to myself, right, if we reject here, I'm going to short this all the way back down. I think the sensible play, considering the fact that alts have retraced 70, 80, 90% of the last 6 months, the more sensible approach for me is being patient that should structures break down, then reposition again in November, in December. But for now, I'm leaning towards price printing a higher high. That's what I'd like to see. The question is whether we get that. I'm hopeful we will, into a higher low, and then continuation into a trending market across altcoins. Okay. I just want to have a quick peek of the SPX with the trend scanner. During that period of correction that we had, all right, so you can see again, just a basic set of moving averages, the period of red. This is a market that you don't want to be trading or pissing against the wind. You don't want to be trying to long this on the way down. Equally, you don't want to be shorting when you see periods of large green, okay, positive bullish signals. The trend is to the upside. Any reversions under the bands is short-lived. reclaims back above, that's continuation higher. Short-lived, reclaim back above, continuation higher. That's kind of what I'm looking for over the coming weeks and months on Total 2 and Total 3 to give me that contextual bias that, you know, it's encouraging to remain bullish or looking for long opportunities on altcoins. So again, looking at Total 2 here in terms of the 2-day and the daily, you can see we've had a period of significant red. We now have flipped green, a very short period of red before flipping bullish again. Now, if you remember what I covered on the previous stream, do you remember the 3 signals that I talked about when you get a bullish signal into a bearish signal, back into a bullish very, very quickly? That's often a sign of strength. Anybody recall that? And you will see those examples on several altcoins across the market. I believe TIA is one of them, where you have, okay, let me just get rid of the lines. Bull into a bear, back into a bull, long. Okay, that's pretty much why I longed TIA yesterday. I've observed this to be, and you can backtest this, right? When you're looking for trend reversals, using the daily time frame, using the 1225 or whichever EMA strategy you wish to use, this is a fairly decent signal. Okay, and it is just a signal in confluence with all your other technical levels. But again, something that I look for to give me the trigger or the signal to start getting back into long mode, looking for that shift in context. Okay, we've had months and months of downtrends, okay, into a range. And I've always talked about the fact that when price is in a range-bound environment, you want to see the bands compress from going into a very short-lived bull, back into a bear, bull for several days, back into the bear, and quickly back into the bull mode again, okay? Then you're looking for that continuation higher. So again, just something to bear in mind. And again, if you remember, why did I long say off the lows? We saw that same pattern repeat again. This is on the daily. Bull, bear, back into bull very, very quickly. Look at the compression of the bands. When you see this quick toggle from bull back into a bear, back into bull, and the bear is very, very short-lived, it's often a good show of strength in the market. So again, a very, very simple strategy that you can observe and look for strength or shifts in a possible shift in context. The fact that price is at the lows is not just the fact that this is going to happen anywhere in the middle of the chart. It's relevant to where you wish to see a good buying opportunity. This was clearly into a demand zone. After months of selling, price finds a range of an accumulation. We get the trigger. This is what I talk about in terms of tail side, longing the tail side of accumulation. This is one of those triggers that gives me the strategy to start stepping into the trade. All right, so again, it's quite effective, something that I've used over the years and something that I still continue to use to give me a trigger to go long. The trigger on TIA was the, again, when you look at TIA, it was the 12 and the 25s on the 12-hour, okay? So generally, you know, I've talked about the daily, but you can potentially front run the signal is when you drop down to a lower time frame, like the 12. And that's what that was the key for me, essentially. The 12-hour back into the bull confirmed on the daily later that day, okay? Upon the close of that day, we got the confirmation. So again, I think when I look at this across the board, there are some fantastic opportunities, and I am positioned long on TIA. I think there's every possibility for as long as this, again, remains respecting price at this key level of around about 450s. I think there's every possibility that we do, or I certainly will be looking to traders back into the 12, at least back into the 12s. Any pullbacks over the coming weeks, again, for me, it's just a position, an opportunity to add to some spot position. I've left plenty of ammunition to add to any pullbacks. And eventually when the perp play sets up, which is a break above this current range, okay, in terms of the local range, potentially a mid-range between this high and this low, that's when I'll start flooring it on futures as well. Okay. So I've always talked about accumulating my spot positions in this base-like consolidation. Call it whatever you want, whether it's a range, whether this is a shoulder, a head, an inverse head and shoulders, whatever you want to call it. Look for continuation higher into the range highs, and once we find acceptance back above, that's the trend continuation into 12, which is where I'm looking to trade on perps. How to get the trend scanner? You just go to indicators and type in, just type in XO. You'll see Trader XO macro trend scanner coded by BTC Charlie. ENA, let's look at ENA because that was one that I talked about in previous streams. I currently have taken profit on my futures position. I was long from 29s. I shared the setup on the timeline. I gave kind of not a live commentary, but I talked about where I'm looking to buy and where I'm looking to position on ENA, and it's moved nicely to the highs. But for now, look, we are into a level of resistance, as is Bitcoin at 66k. I think if there are any pullbacks, then for me, the level would have to be, again, just using a very, very simple strategy, is using the bands. Look at the weekly. We can't gain too much from there, okay? So we'll go down to the 3-day where there's more data. There's a very high probability that for as long as price respects that 34 cents level back into the bands, and this gives you a bullish signal, I'm looking for that continuation higher into $1. I do think we could very well potentially get $1 in terms of a higher time frame target, but immediate targets would be 50, 60, and so forth. But that's the big rounded bottom structure context that I'm looking for. The only issue that I have, okay, in terms of, look, I don't know what's going to happen heading into the elections. Are we going to see a period of risk off into the elections? And even if we do, so what? You know, it's just another opportunity as far as I'm concerned, that we've had several months of a downtrending market. And if there is another pullback, that's going to be, again, for anybody who isn't positioned, and I'm not just talking about ENA, but structurally on altcoins across the board, I think that's going to present you a very good buying opportunity, give you an even bigger base to rally off, looking for at least $1. Okay, that's kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of the high time frame context. But having said that, when you look at the 3-day, this really does look prime to cross or at least give a bull signal. When you look at the 2-day, I would probably guess that it already has signaled that, which there we are, okay? We've got the signal there on the 2-day, and we already know what's happening on the daily. For the first time in quite some time on ENA, we had a very short period of green, but the minute we got back under that level with the with the bear signal, sell off. Okay, that's the trend. Look at the trajectory of the moving averages. You don't want to be, again, counter trend trading this. You want to flow in the direction of price until you get a slowdown of momentum. When you get a slowdown of momentum, it's often a range-bound environment. You can play the rotational aspects of the range. Now I'm looking for the trend breakout over the coming weeks and months back up to at least 50 cents, $1, okay? That's what I'd be looking for. So again, using a very simple reversion strategy, looking for a pullback into the bands, even if we rally higher and we get that fairly steep pullback back into 40 cents and the bands align, that's kind of the strategy that I'm going to be looking for in terms of SR levels with the bands. Very simple strategy, works very well for me. If we get fine acceptance back inside the range, then you just have to accept it, take what the market gives you, and cut your losses there, okay? Now, recall what I also said about the monthly open strategy. So not only can you use the bands, you can also use the monthly open strategy. Again, it was another reason why I took the long on Celestia, why I'm positioned long, and I'm looking for pullbacks. If there is a pullback into 550, which is the monthly open, I'm just going to add to my spot position. I just think when you zoom out, look at the charts, you've got to look at the structures, you've got to think to yourself, well, there's a very good chance that prices are likely or could certainly continue higher over the coming weeks or months. Okay, and that's what I want to position for. The trades on perps, like I said, is once I see the shift in context with higher highs and higher lows and the moving averages showing me that the shift in momentum, that's when I start flooring it on perps. Okay, but again, in these environments, it's essentially what I'm looking for in terms of building positions for those significant moves higher without really being exposed to too much leverage. And again, when you think of the mindset, give the trade a chance to breathe. It's not going to take off overnight. And when you're chasing price, you're often going to find that you're buying the highs and the price retraces and you cut it, it jumps back up higher, you chase it again. Just give price a chance to develop. Give yourself some mental capacity to build a position, okay? It's still very early. It's still within a range, okay? Especially something like ENA, when you look at this, September monthly open, October monthly open. So any pullbacks into this or below, right? Even if we trade below the September monthly, October monthly open, and it flips back above, that is your shift in structure. That's your higher low. That's your higher high. That's your higher low. Back above the monthly open. Step back into trade, looking for a higher high. Okay, and you can keep building to the position once you break out of this range, looking for price to continue high in terms of a trending market. So just keeping a very simple approach. For those of you who are finding it difficult to hold your positions or even looking at the market, not knowing where to position or how to position, you probably see meme coins run fairly aggressive. I just think that if meme coins are already up 3, 4, 5, 6x off the lows, yes, they could go significantly higher. But I also think there's going to be an opportunity in some of the utility coins and some of the higher caps, mid caps, which will present some very good trading opportunities as well. All right, there's a lot of chart requests. Zig, okay, we'll have a look at Zig because I bought into this today. Again, I think I really like these types of structures. I'll give you an example. So SZ was trading something called FWOG, which has done very, very well. Again, just ignore the time series aspect of the chart. Look at the structural aspect of the chart. This was range bound for the best part of August, September, mid-October. Okay, when you look at this, you think, right, this is going to roll over. But what often happens is price runs a significant set of lows and it just rips higher. I'll show you another example where this happened. And the reason I can point these out is because I was there observing price, watching price trade these types of structures. They give you very aggressive moves. I do believe it's a phase of reaccumulation. But you get price where it's just grinding lower, and you think that there's no buyer stepping into the market. The volume is very, very low. If you look at the actual volume indicator, very subdued, okay? And when you run it forward, price just takes off. On thin books, thin supply, price will move fairly quick. Okay, that's the kind of setup or trade that I'm looking for on Zig over the coming weeks. I don't know when it's going to play out. I couldn't tell you. But again, just understanding how I'm thinking of structures. I'm not really into the classic meme structures, which is like sending triangles or head and shoulders pattern or cup and handles. Not into that. For me, it's more about these types of structures that I pay attention to. And I've just given you two examples there. One was on FOG, the other one was a PAL. So again, just something similar that I'm looking for over the coming weeks. Like, should there be another push down into the 8 cents? I've already positioned from 10 cents or just under 10. If I get 8 cents, that will give me a basis of around about 9 cents. Looking for price to go back up into 20s, okay? So just, again, I'm not specifically talking just about ZIG, but I'm trying to give you some contextual understanding of structures to look for. Is that clear? One for the scrapbook. 6 months of price trading sideways. One of the strongest coins when many of the coins were falling off a cliff. Just give me a second. That's what I'd be thinking of, okay? Where you've got consolidation, slow drift down, and eventually price just rips up out of nowhere. All right, there you go. Textbook example of what that looks like in terms of those of you who are into wick-off structures. Right, let's have a look at some altcoins just very briefly. I did say I was going to cover Ethereum, but we'll cover Ethereum on the stream. But looking at this, already positioned, tweeted it live, talked about it in the previous streams. I'm not going to repeat myself, but if you want to figure out what my thought process is, for those of you who watched the previous streams, you know exactly what I talked about. When I believe price was over here, I said that there's every possibility that we're going to see one more correction. Structure doesn't quite look ready to break out. So again, just talking about structures, talking about what you need to see happen on the chart. And now we're getting that push out. And I'll give you another example of I think we're going to see it very, very soon. So again, if you remember where I talked about where you, in a range-bound environment after a sell-off, you get this bull signal followed by a bear. I think there's every possibility this is going to signal bull tomorrow, especially the way this is closing, which is very, very encouraging. And I think very encouraging for the broader market that we could see continuation higher, albeit barring some pullbacks. But again, that's kind of the level that if there is a pullback into 25s or 24s, I want to see this mid-level hold and then continuation higher. And I'm guessing that on the 12-hour, there's every possibility that this is now a signal bullish, maybe yesterday or the day before. Well, hey, there you go. Okay, so we've got it counted today. So very, very encouraging to see. Again, when you look at the weekly on this, it still has some work to do on the weekly in terms of the band. So I don't suspect we're going to get that aggressive breakout just yet on Ethereum. But it's certainly looking encouraging. Let's look at the 3-day. Yeah, still needs a bit of work on the 3-day. Ideally, I want to see a price trading above the bands, and then we're going to see a form of compression on the 12 and the 25. So maybe, essentially, what would that look like? The 12 and the 25 compressing, price pushes above, pulls back, and then you're going to get that fast move into this previous supply zone here. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Or alternatively, a pullback into 24s, continuation higher. Let's look at Nero. I think this has got some legs on it. It's already in the top 100 now. SE nailed it from 1 to 2 million market cap to $1 billion market cap. Absolutely insane. Insane call. Really is. But again, anybody who's trying to short this, good luck. You're just pissing your money away if you're trying to short this. All right, let's look at some charts. PAL, I'll spend 5 minutes very quickly. Looking at PAL, yep. Look, I think a lot of these charts look very familiar in terms of structure. You just got a beautiful set of lows here, which has been June, July, August, September. So in terms of basing structures, this is what you want to see. Base structures being formed, big rounded bottoms. You could argue that this is a shift in structure. Okay, we've had a real shakeout. Price prints a higher high relative to this swing point into a higher low. I'd be looking now at some point in the coming weeks, barring a pullback, into another higher high, higher low, into that type of structure there. Okay, that's what I'd be looking for. Now, if you look at Miro, anybody take the Miro setup that I shared on stream previously? I think I covered it last week. Anybody? There's too many questions in the chat for me to keep up. But there you go. Okay. Capped by the trend line. I said specifically on the stream that any pullbacks into the September monthly open, even if it's just a deviation below the September monthly open and it gets back above, that is the opportunity to go long. Okay. I don't know how clearer I could have been in my explanation, but that was the trigger. And I said specifically, it doesn't matter, even if it comes deep into here, let it get acceptance back above. That's your trigger to go long. Okay. And you've just got to be patient with these types of plays. When the broader market is telling you that alts are rallying, alts are starting to trend higher, alts are starting to reclaim back above their monthly open. If you look at this from a range perspective, August, September, into October, and you're trying to fade the first significant breakout of a range, then you're trading this the wrong way, okay? And equally, for those of you who have managed to position, but you're just giving back, or you're just taking profit very, very prematurely, and fully closing out your position, not appreciating that. Look at the structure price is making here. We've had a significant retracement of price over 6 months. Eventually, there's going to be a reversion back up at least into 16, 17 cents. I'm personally targeting these eyes here for give or take an 8, 9, 10 hour trade, okay? I'm still in this trade setup. Now, I'll give you another setup that looks really good. I think it's Jupiter. Again, when you look at this, April, May, June, July, what is this here? The high into a significant low. Lower high, equal lows. Lower high, equal lows. Lower high, equal lows, equal highs. Okay? This is that rounded bottom, very similar to what I shared on WIF. Okay, remember when I talked about the lows on WIF on the timeline? It was around here. This area here. The target, we've hit. The trade is done for me. Okay, I'm waiting now for another setup on WIF. I'm not looking to long into resistance, but in terms of a range on WIF, there we go. Okay, there's a chart I had from the previous stream or the timeline. Above the September monthly open, that would have been my invalidation. If we got back below it, I would have stepped aside. Continuation higher into that area. Well, I circled it here, but we've kind of pinged that level. Now, in terms of WIF, what am I looking for? Again, like I said, if there is a correction, if there is a corrective move, two ways I can look to do this, okay? So in terms of trade setups, what you're going to find, and I want you to pay very, very close attention to this, okay? What you're going to find is certain chartists are going to tell you that WIF has taken the highs. I'm going to short this market. I'm going to take a short in here, and I'm going to target all the way back down because this is deviation. Okay. I think what you really have to think about is a broader context of the market. Look at what Bitcoin is doing. Look at what Ethereum is doing. Look at what Total 2 and Total 3 are doing. Look at the structures that I've given you. Yes, it is a swing fail of these highs, but understand the context that you're in. And the key point that I want to make is that, all right, let's just assume shorts are building up into this. They might get some success, at least down into this level here, into this demand zone. But the minute price goes back up and takes out their stops, okay, or they get stopped out, look at the inefficiency on the left-hand side. There's absolutely nothing here until $3.50. So when this fucker moves and it gives a shallow pullback where shorts think they're in control, and then price just rips one candle up, pushing back into resistance, and then fucks them over, it's not going to fuck about. If you see this shallow pullback and price pushes back up into resistance, I'd say the probability is that we're going to fill in this thin inefficiency, at least trade back into 350s if we get that pullback. That's what I'll be looking for. So I am looking to get back into WIF from a long perspective. I'm just not sure where yet. Let price develop. Let's see what Bitcoin is going to do. It is at resistance. If Bitcoin does pull into that 63K level, then looking at the chart here, working this in just ranges, this is our key SR, round about here, round about this level here, okay? Into that daily demand zone. And what's going to be key for me is market structure. High, high, low, another high, low, high. I want to see price come down into this level, respect the wick, okay? Respect this candle here. I don't want to see acceptance below it. As close as possible, start pushing away, stop below this level here. I'll start scaling in, looking for price to go back up into that 290 level and potentially higher into that 350, 370, 390 level. Does that make sense? In context with what Bitcoin could potentially do. Now, if Bitcoin breaks up higher into 68, 69, 70K, what do you think alts are going to do in that sense? So again, looking at structure, right? Big rounded bottom over many months. Let's go back to what I said on Jupiter. Again, looking for a very similar play here. Looking for that move back up into 120s. Any pullbacks, I'm going to start scaling in because I think this is a good enough of a base. Clean the chart. That's the base level that I'm looking for. You can use the monthly opens, all right? So we've got September monthly open here. Okay, and I talked about the fact on the previous stream, look for those pullbacks into the September monthly open. That's the area where you want to do your business. If it gets below, let it get acceptance back above. You're going to get the trigger to go long. Invalidation out the lows. Your first objective is a mid, then this, and then you got the highs, okay? That's how I would be looking to trade this. So for me, my objective on this now is going to be that 130 level. And I'm not even in this trade yet. So I'm looking to get into this trade here. Another example is Jito. Same setup, same type of structure, range lows. These are the type of setups that I really look forward to. Okay. So again, any pullbacks, if there are any, I think it's a position where I'd be comfortable buying into spot for as long as we find that price is respecting the 170 level. I think even from a risk to reward perspective, just even if you do get a shallow pullback, stop is below 175s. First objective is 335. Then you got to go for the highs. Okay, it's kind of what I'd be looking for. What about say? Say I'm already in say. I've covered it several times. Again, looking at where the bands are, we're in a range bound environment. Any pullback into these, this consolidation here. Okay, that same structure, compression, then you're gonna get the breakout. Or at least what I'd be hoping for. Invalidation for me is should price break below 38, then I'd have to take profit on my spot that I bought here and here. So I took a second spot position at 39. If we start trading below there, then I'll have to cut that spot position. And if we start trading below here, I'll have to take profit on this one here over there. But again, look at the bands. Don't fade the bands, okay? Very simple strategy. And when you look at SUI as an example, why in your right mind would you want to short this? Is this a distribution top? Look at what the bands are telling you. This is a distribution top, okay? Look at the trajectory of the bands, and then we get a range band environment into a possible distributive environment, and then we get the breakdown, okay? It's still too early to even be contemplating shorts on this. If you're looking for shorts, it's not here. You might ping a short off this and get a trade into 190s, but contextually, this is not the zone for me. And the other point I want to make here is when you look at SUI, right, you'd look at this here, and this is what many altcoins are doing right now. You'd look at this and you think the stock RSI is at the highs here. It's looking fairly oversold. But what you have to remember, in a trending market, oscillators can remain oversold and overbought to the upside and oversold to the downside in a trending market. And if you look at what happens over the coming weeks, we all kind of know what SUI has done. It's still remaining overbought over 1 to 3 weeks in already. And then you're going to get people trying to short this when I've told you clearly that you've only got to look at the bands. Why are you trying to short the momentum to the upside? Even the daily here is overbought for at least several days, at least. But again, when you look at the weekly, price is still pushing higher. Let's look at the daily. It's already oscillated to the lows as price is compressing, consolidating, and trending higher. And it's retesting the bands on the 1221. Then you get that compression continuation higher. And the bands have the stock has reset at the lows, looking for an oscillation to the highs. That's going to give you that momentum to the upside. Okay? That's how I want you to think about markets and using oscillators. Don't get caught offside just because this is oversold. So again, using this example, when you look at something like, say, you'd look at this and you think, yeah, you know what? The weekly is fairly overbought. But again, look at the bands. Any pullbacks, if there is one, into that 41, 42 cents level, Look at how price has reacted from it previously on the previous 2 weekly candles. It's reacted from that level, pushing higher. Again, when you look at the daily bands are intact, oscillating to the highs. Okay, so any pullbacks into that 35, 34, 33 cents level is probably where I'm going to look to take another futures trade. Yeah, Wormhole looks very good. I traded Wormhole really well. I think when you look at the daily, it's looking really good. When you look at the weekly, it's literally starting to flip the bands here, although we are limited on data. Therefore, I have to go for the 3-day bands. But again, we've shifted above the 3-day for the first time, and it's tested that band perfectly at 32. So I think this will evidently, if the market's bullish, looking for continuation higher. You've got a shoulder, you've got a head, another shoulder, look for that continuation, and there you go, there's the inverse. Okay, and then you got thin inefficiency, at least up into 50 cents and potentially 70 cents. That's kind of the structure that I'd be looking for. FET, we'll have a look at FET. Very similar. Shoulder, head, shoulder, inverse head and shoulders. It's turned bullish on the 3-day. Weekly, it looks like it's going to flip bullish at some point next week or potentially this week. Daily, looks good. Looks very good. For as long as we respect market structure, okay? For as long as we respect this 130s level, that's the support that I want to see hold. And then you're looking for continuation above these highs, and I think that opens the floodgates back to 240 to 260, or at least that's what I'd be looking to trade towards. All right, guys, I think that's going to be it. I'm obviously very, very tired. I keep stuttering over my words and stumbling over my words. Lack of sleep deprivation. And I think I need to reset. I've been trading Saturday, Sunday, and today for the best part. I'm due for a long session of sleep. I've been managed some fairly sizable perps position, double my perps account so far this month. So I think I'm just going to reset. I've taken profit on a lot of my perp setups, and I'm looking for some clear setups later this week. Does that make sense? But again, I've just tried to keep things very simple. You know, forget all this shit about open interest and funding rates and this and that, the other. Just focus on the basics of price. Okay, and I always try to keep these videos very price focused. Understand structure, understand context, understand what you're looking for, what you need to see, where you're likely to be wrong on an idea. And as soon as you're wrong, you know, as traders, we're going to get many things wrong, okay? But it's just understanding when you need to get out of the trade and preserve your cash to live for another day, all right? Apart from that, have a great week ahead, and I'll catch you on the other side of the stream later this week. God bless, take care, and peace out.